Please, can we welcome now to the Bavard Bar stage, Juliet Harris.
Well, thank you very much for that very whoopy welcome. I did have some designated whoopers in the audience. I also like how I'm stood at a thing. I feel like I should be giving a TED talk or something. But Colm's a very serious and excellent talk. This is not at all. This is something that's far more frivolous, I'm afraid. So I'm going to talk about talking. Tim said talk about something that you're passionate about. I talk a lot, it turns out. I've been told all my life that I do nothing but talk, which is, a fair assessment. I'm hoping you're not going to feel this vibe too much. I gave a talk along these lines at the Delaware Pavilion at something called the Petra Kucha Night, which is a little bit similar to this but much more structured. You have to put 20 images up that are 20 seconds long each to illustrate your talk. You have no control over when they move on. So 6 minutes, 40 seconds of non-stop talking. I'm going to do 15 minutes of slightly more relaxed talking, but I don't think I'm going to stop very much, so that's an advance warning for you. This is David Byrne. David Byrne is in a band called Talking Heads, who I like very much. I was made clear to me in this previous talk that I had to have images to illustrate my talk. So, this is David Byrne from Talking Heads in a documentary in which he is appearing as a talking head, talking about being in Talking Heads. It's an illustration, well, firstly, of how I'll never be as funny as I think I am. And actually, when I made that joke at the thing I talked about previously, nobody laughed. So in a way, that was it. So an illustration, wasn't it, I suppose? So this is the second version of that talk. Speaking of jokes that probably no one will laugh at because no one shares my sense of humour. This is talking about talking to, or for those of us who are 80s film fans, look who's talking about talking to. So we'll move on from David. He's my spirit animal for this. Every time I worry about talking, I channel David in his lovely pink jacket, which I wish I had. When I first thought about doing a talk about talking, I thought I'd do 20 quotes about talking, and wouldn't that be a lovely thing to do? And I lost an entire Sunday to what I can only describe as inspirational nonsense online. I mean, so many motivational beaches, so many people finding themselves in front of pictures of mountains, and I just didn't want to do that to you, frankly. I mean, I did that so you didn't have to. I took one for the team, but I did quite like what our good friend Plato said here, because I very much use talking as a thinking process. Obviously I think a lot as well, but I often, allegedly, I would like to say so anyway, but I use talking as a way of kind of deciding what I think and what I feel about things, really, and we'll come back to that as a theme as we go on. Now, my day job is talking because I'm a lawyer. Now, I wasn't going to talk about this too much anyway, and since I discovered that my boss is in the audience this evening, I'm gonna, yes, lols, I'm gonna not really talk much about being a lawyer at all. This is meant to represent me being a lawyer. One of these dudes sitting down is me. I buy and sell people's houses. It is not a stress-free process for anyone, frankly, but particularly if you're buying a house, you're quite into it, and that's often not ideal. I became a much better lawyer once I realised that, people buy into people, really. And once I realised I didn't have to be, I know I'm in a suit jacket, but I didn't have to be a faceless suit, and I could actually, this might surprise you, but win people over with my personality sometimes. I thought that actually, it's actually quite good to be able to calm people down. So, and for people to realise that you are a person. So that kind of led me into thinking, rather than sitting down doing this, I could also stand up and do this, couldn't I? Wouldn't that be great? So I became a stand-up comic. Sum total earnings £25, so not a professional stand-up comic. I often turn the telly on and see people that I used to gig with, which is not at all depressing in any way, shape or form. Here I am as illustration of that, stinking up the bottom of a bill in East London about 7 years ago. But I really liked doing it. But it is bowel-looseningly frightening. I mean, if you're having problems with regularity, do some stand-up. It will sort it out, I promise. And I really enjoyed it because actually, weirdly, although you are talking at people, stand-up is a conversation. People's reactions inform what you're going to say. So basically, if you are aware that you are dying on your arse, as I quite often did, you need to then actually be... the one thing that's worse than being booed off is being silenced off. That is the most painful thing ever. It happened to me in Eastbourne once, so what can I say? It's nice to be back. actually, I really enjoyed it, but the fear was quite a lot, actually. So I thought, what can I do that involves telling stories and seeing people, meeting people, talking to people, but ideally I'd like to be able to do that sitting down again and in my pyjamas. That's really my aim for this. Someone bought me this book by this guy called John Osborne, who spends his whole life going, no, not that John Osborne. I'm a writer called John Osborne, but no, not look back in anger. That's not me. He wrote this book called Radiohead, which is the idea that he was working in this boring temp job in Norwich, and he decided to make his life a bit more interesting. He'd listen to 30 different radio stations over 30 days and write about the things that he heard, and he discovered that actually it was an amazing way to connect with lots of people really intimately at the same time, and that really appealed to me. Also, I'm a big fan of stories, of crazy stories, and this book has my favourite story of all time ever. If you've heard this, I'm sorry, but it is worth hearing again, and I really, really hope this is true and not an urban legend. It comes from Tommy Boyd's show that he used to do on the radio. A woman rung in and told the story about how she got the train to work once, and she sat down and she bought herself a Kit Kat to treat herself on the way to work. So she gets a Kit Kat out, and she's sat opposite what can only be described as a skinhead. And I mean, you might have heard of RBF, which stands for resting bitch face, which is kind of a phenomenon that's used when people naturally look quite cross. Skinheads are a whole other level of RBF. So this man's default pose was quite angry anyway, I think. So this woman, she snaps off the first finger of her Kit Kat and she eats it and puts it down on the table. At which point, the skinhead looks really cross, even for a chap with no hair, and no offence to him, and picks up the second finger of the Kit Kat and snaps off and eats it. And our woman is, pretty angry by this point, so she then pointedly snaps off the third bit of her Kit Kat, and eats it. At which point the skinhead is livid and eats the fourth finger in one go. And the woman gets off the train, furious, like utterly speechless, goes into work, tells her colleague about how terrible it's been, opens her handbag to get her wallet out and finds the Kit Kat in one piece. Well, in fact, she'd never eaten it. You only hear stories like this on the radio. I know, isn't it a banger of a story? It's amazing. So actually, stuff like that is what really makes radio appeal to me, because it is just so funny. And actually, another urban myth, I'll do another story. I was in the pub for Hastings Jack in the Green Day. It was one of those years where it rained, so when it's Jack in the Green Hastings and it's sunny, you spend 7 hours on a hill watching Morris dancers, and which is great, but and when it rains, you spend 7 hours in a pub, and things take a turn. And one of our friends turned up and told us this story of someone in her brass band who knew someone once who turned up to a rehearsal with a python. And it disappeared into someone's hood, and they do like, I don't know why people take pythons to pub, but anyway, someone else told a story of someone she once knew who had a boa constrictor as a pet, and he was quite into it, and they used to hang out around the house together. He didn't really keep it in a tank, they used to just do this thing. And he took it to the vet once. I don't know what was wrong with this boa constrictor, but he took it to the vet, and it was the end of the day, and the vet was kind of packing up, and he said, so is there anything else that you need to know about boa constrictors? And the chap said, well, he's doing this thing that's a bit weird, and I don't really know. And the vet say, all right, I'll just carry on packing up, and you just tell me about it. He goes, right, so when I go to bed at night, it often sleeps in with me. It does this thing where it kind of stretches out straight next to me, at which point the vet put down what he was doing and said, you need to get rid of that. It's measuring itself out against you to see if it can eat you. Now, I was merrily telling people this story because I thought, oh my God, isn't this amazing that I've been to the pub with someone that knows this story, and I told it to someone once and they went, yeah, someone said that on Capital FM the other day. And I was devastated that I'd been caught out by this urban myth, but it made me realise the immense power of radio, that so many of us have radio in our lives, that, this is where we get our stories from. This is another book that I absolutely love by a woman called Fee Glover, who, if you're a Radio 4 listener, you probably know who Fee Glover is. I think she's done Saturday Live, Broadcasting House, all that kind of stuff. She's in the listening project at the moment. This is her story of going across the road to visit the world to visit different radio stations. She ends up in Montserrat, she ends up amongst cafe table fligging football fans, Euro 2000, she goes everyone. Again, I would thoroughly recommend that if you're into it. So, when I was thinking about how I was going to talk, my mum said, you don't remember what you used to do when you were 8, do you? And it turns out, I did many things when I was 8, but one of the things that I did was, we had 2 of these in our house. I would play music on one of these, and then I would use the other one to record. I'd put it right up close against it, and I'd record myself playing music, and I'd do little links. So I have been doing radio since I was 8, apparently. So, right, so to go back to the fact that I sometimes go out and have a drink, which is a general story and a specific story in this case, I met someone at a party who said, oh, I know Andy Gunton, who runs this station called Hastings Rock. Have you got any experience with radio? I have to be honest, I wildly overestimated my experience of radio at this point, because I'd had a few drinks and, why not? And I must have actually talked up a storm, because I had a phone call at home from Andy Gunton, who said, right, so you're going to do this show on Hastings Rock, which was news to me, but I went with it. And he said, what are you going to talk about? At which point, my brain sent a message to my mouth along the lines of, you got us into this, it's now your turn to get us out. So I had a look around my flat whilst I was keeping Andy kind of, hanging on the phone, and saw this book. And I said, okay then, I'll do the history of women in rock in 2 hours. And I did, somewhat unbelievably. We started at Joni Mitchell, this was about 4 years ago, we started at Joni Mitchell, and we ended at Anna Calvi, I think, and that's how we managed it. So that taught me a lot about talking about music. This often popped into my head during the first 2 weeks of trying to plan that show. And I think, to go on to the next slide, I nicked this from a sort of a business type dude, but this, I think, really sums up my philosophy of talking, really, which is, if I can't talk about this, it doesn't exist. If you pardon the pun, the tree falls in the woods, it does not make a sound. If I can't, explain about music, thank you for that one person that laughed. If I can't talk about what I'm into, which is music, I'm enormously passionately into music. I feel if I can't share that with other people, then I know nothing about it. And actually, when I'm thinking about, talking, this is so meta, isn't it? I'm talking about thinking about talking. I think of this is an album by a band called Public Service Broadcasting, which is great. I don't know them, so I get no money for telling you it's great, but I still think you should buy it because it's really good. And they nicked the BBC's original slogan there, which is to inform, educate and entertain, and that's what I try to do when I'm doing some broadcasting. This chap is my favourite radio presenter ever, the late John Peel. So occasionally, we'll go on to talk about my radio stuff at home, but occasionally things break and you have to fill air. This is the magic, quote unquote, of radio. All of my stuff broke at home once, and I had to fill 9.5 minutes of dead air whilst we got everything going again. This book has every John Peel session ever, every Festive 50 list ever, all kinds of stats for nerds like me and the nerds that listen to my programme, I say that with love. And so I can thoroughly recommend this book if you have 9.5 minutes to fill and you're in a panic and you want to talk about indie music. It's really, really good for that. So I managed to fumble my way onto this station called ARFM as a result of having done Hastings Rock. I had a lovely time on that station. It was very, very rock. You'd get emails that would say things like, hello Juliet, we are a German polka metal band called Crank and Welpen. They seemed like lovely people, to be fair, but I wasn't exactly a square peg in a square hole, but I had a lovely time. But obviously when they put me on this station, I said to my friend, oh my God, quick, we need to legitimately make me look like a broadcaster when I'm not. Have you got a posh camera? Brilliant, can you bring it round? And we found some CDs in my house. That Bell and Sebastian badge has long since been lost, which is a pity, and also, I can't remember last time that jacket fitted, but, the song remains the same, in that, we decided that we'd make me look like a broadcaster, and it sort of kind of worked, really. Six Music, if you want to give me a call, I think that'd look good on your website. So, this is the studio at home. It has never been that tidy before or since, frankly. That was very much a moment in time, as all photographs are. It's a very basic setup. It cost a couple of £100. Bit of software, the thing with the lights on, I press to set off the songs. Keeping on the Eastbourne theme, that is a poster for a show at the Town Gallery in the background, so what can I say, relevant to my location. And that's where I do it. And the internet I broadcast on internet stations, and it has massively revolutionised radio. You don't need to have a £2,000 desk anymore. You can do it from home, which means everyone thinks they're a radio broadcaster, but actually there is some talent to it, and I haven't taken a picture, but that book on the desk there is my running order book, and I am really, really strict on my running orders, because people think, oh, it's radio, you can just talk, can't you? You know what record you want to play, just talk. You never have any time. on radio until you don't know what you're going to say, and then you have all the time in the world when you don't want it. So basically, I play 2 tracks in a row usually, because I think that's quite a nice thing to do, and then I give myself exactly 2 minutes to talk. And it's amazing how often I hit that, by and large. It's once you discipline yourself into doing it, it works really well. I do quite a lot of improvising facts on my iPad, that's always quite good. Oh. And I think I'm almost out of time, so I'm just going to very quickly rush through this last bit. This is the station I broadcast on. It's called Barricade Radio. It's online. It's run from someone's back bedroom in Aberystwyth. I'm not telling you it's glamorous, it clearly isn't. But no, it's a great station. We have listeners all over the world, at all the glamour places, as well as Aberystwyth, Seychelles, Bexhill, all those kind of places. I do this show on Wednesdays. I did my 203rd edition of this show last night. I don't know how no one's intervened before this point. They haven't, so it is still a thing. We are still going. You can listen to barricaderadio.com. That's a snazzy flyer that I have made. I do this every other Saturday, 6 till 7. It's called the Saturday Social. My friend rather meanly pointed me out the other day, if you have to spell it, then it doesn't work as a name, and I always have to spell it, but I'm sticking with it nonetheless. It's Northern Soul, Motown, and I just love doing it, and I love using the iPad to tell people about which old-fashioned Motown stars have continuously evaded tax and such other things that I do on my links. I also do a podcast with a chap called Terence Dackham. He told me off the last time I did this talk because I only mentioned the fact that he had a walk-on part in the Craze film and didn't mention any of the rest of his career, and condensed his career into 10 seconds from 1990. So he used to tour manage for The Clash. He put on Chuck Berry on a tour once, which he has nothing good to say about. He was also a Daily Mirror horse racing correspondent, so he has lived a life. We talk about politics, media, we talk about sports, we talk about all sorts of things, and often I don't know how I feel about things until I've spoken to Terence about them on a podcast that 2,000 people per day listen to, apparently, which is a weird way of doing it, but that seems to work for me. It would be quicker to tell you who hadn't had this quote attributed to them than who had, frankly. It's been attributed to everybody in the world and their small dog, and we don't know who it was that actually said it, but we're going to go with Steve Martin here, because he's the person that gets lumped with it the most. He says, talking about music is like dancing about architecture. Well, essentially, yes. It's, music should speak for itself, but all the time there are kind of self-important windbags like me that insist that it shouldn't. I'm going to keep doing the whole broadcasting thing. And 16 minutes and 30 seconds in, I'm going to stop. Thank you very much for listening.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Juliet. I'm sure that you've probably gathered a whole heap more listeners to Barricade.
Well, I hope so. At least try it once.
Does anybody have any questions for Juliet? I'm sure there are some questions out there. I should probably start by saying, when I mentioned Cliff Richard earlier, I'm not a fan.
Do you know, I don't do the whole judgy thing. That is so tedious. And to be fair, Move It's a bit of a tune. So don't be afraid. Yeah, that's a banger, actually. I take your point.
So we'll move off Cliff's songs now. But anybody...
Yes, any non-Cliff Richard related questions would be very much welcome. So take a picture.
Anybody got any questions? Anything to do with radio? I'm fascinated by your broadcasting career. So with 2 broadcasters in the room.
Yeah. Word up, bro.
Cole, have you tried? Yes, Cole.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Tell us about your ukulele band.
I was talking to Colm about this. So I thought, I have quite a busy life. When I tell people about what I do, they say, this is why you're tired all the time and can never work it out, which is true. I play electric ukulele in a band called Go Bodicea, which I kind of started as a joke with a friend of mine, really. And we do gigs, and we've recorded a little EP that's going to be called Mrs. Punch is Not For Sale. And the reason that it's called that is because in Lewes there is the Tom Paine printing press, and they have a metal doorstop outside in the shape of Mrs. Punch, and people always go inside to ask them how much it is. So there's a small paper sign on their windowsill that says Mrs. Punch is not for sale. So in answer to your question, yes, that is the band that we do.
And will your ukulele ukulele band come and play at Prince's?
Well, if you'd have us, we'd love to come.
Fabulous. Possibly a new member for the Pilgrim Mothers as well.
Absolutely. Well, we have had that chat, you know. Have Corsa will travel. I will come and help.
Brilliant, brilliant. Any more questions for Juliet before we take another break? Is that a hand? No, it's not being
Yes,
involved.
the end.
Oh,
Yeah.
was there a hand? Yeah.
I'm just changing my jumper. Take my jumper.
You're not the first person to have said that to me. In like about fantastic. Oh, there's a lady waving. Hello. Hi.
Do you ever want to just give up the law and just do the radio?
Shut your ears, boss. Well, I mean, if this was the 90s, obviously everything would be different. I could probably eke out some sort of career doing a bit of broadcasting, maybe a bit of music writing, you know, and eking out some sort of thing. We don't live in the 90s anymore. Radio is sort of, by and large, the Cinderella kind of profession if you compare it to television broadcasting. I went to there used to be an organisation called Sound Women, which was to support women that were in radio and wanted to be into radio, and I went to a conference at Broadcasting House and gave myself away as a visitor by having lots of pictures taken of me outside Broadcasting House, looking really excited while everyone else walked in with their BBC buzzers on. And I was talking to people there, and at that time I did wonder if I might, you know, I was locoming for a bit, and I was kind of thinking about maybe tipping into it, and a few conversations with the World Service newsreaders about the realities of radio and its pay and its conditions and the difficulty of the opportunities in it made me think, you know, I quite like my spare bedroom studio. I'll just do it as a hobby for a bit, and then, you know, obviously if anyone here is from BBC Six Music and wants to offer me a job, you know, come and find me. I'd be dead into that. I'll do weekends so that I continue to be a badass conveyancing solicitor during the week. But yeah, I mean, I love doing radio, and the nice thing, as I said about the internet thing, is that I can do it as a hobby. I don't have to, you know, work for a community station or whatever. I can just, you know, muck about at home really, and people seem to indulge me in doing it. So, you know, I'm very lucky.
Fabulous, thank you. Another question?
Well, it's not a question. It's a really bad pun. I can't.
Oh, I love bad puns. Come on, hit me with it. Go on.
But I've got to go with it because Bex has just put me up to it. So
Brilliant. Go on, lads.
From a distance. Cliff Richard.
Oh.
I thought the Radiohead book was a bit creepy. I apologise.
No, don't apologise at all. Thank you for, and this is me going into radio, for anyone that didn't get the pun, thank you for referencing Radiohead's seminal hit, Creep. 1993, I believe. So yeah, no, I would recommend it. Funny enough, I would recommend the creepy Radiohead book. It's really good and really fun, and yeah, like I say, the Kit Kat story is probably worth the asking price alone, frankly. So yeah, thank you for your contribution.
Brilliant. Thank you. Any more questions? Yes.
What's the strangest topic you've ever spoken about on radio?
Now that is cricket picnics. We had a conversation once not on the radio, but on the podcast. So Terence sends me the menus every week. He calls it the menu. It's the list of topics that we're going to talk about. We pick two. So it's called the Parish Council, the podcast, and the format is that we have 4 songs. So we pick 2 songs each. So we have a song and then a topic, song then a topic, song then a topic, then a song at the end. Terence hates instrumentals from the 60s, and I absolutely love them. So usually I pick a 60s instrumental to kind of epically troll Terence. And he usually suggests topics, and he said, we were talking about eating and cricket, and I said, are you into cricket picnics? Because I really, really am. I go to cricket for the picnic. I'm not that bothered about the cricket, to be honest, but the picnic is amazing. And it turns out Terence has a phobia of pork pie wrapped in cellophane. It drives him absolutely mad. And we spoke for about 10 minutes about Terence's difficulties with food in shrink wrap that's been in the sun for 3 hours. And Terence is a very tidy man, and I'm quite laissez-faire when it comes to stuff like that. You know, as long as there's not obviously muck on it, I don't really mind. So and afterwards we finished talking, and I thought, who's going to want to listen to this? We've just spent 5 minutes talking about pork pies and cellophane. We got so many tweets that week by people that wanted to share their stories about not liking eating certain things and what you should have in your cricket picnic. Scotch eggs very much welcomed, apparently. So yeah, that is the oddest thing we've spoken about, probably.
I'm seeing another Bavard bar talk there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any more questions for Juliet? Yeah. I'm listening to my hands.
I think we've heard enough.
In that case, can we thank Juliet?